Hello everyone again, welcome to this particular video, and in here we're going to continue for where we stop, involving operations and strategies on how to solve various equations. In here we are going to continue from adding one more strategy. Looking from our previous video, we observed that we need to be able to not only distribute, which is what we did first when we see brackets, but also we need to be able to collect like terms alongside inverse operations, and we are able to apply our understanding to verifying that the answer we got for our variable works for the equation in question. So in here we're going to add our final piece of the puzzle, which is called the common denominator, where in here if you're given fractions, like for example this question 2 where you're asked to solve, we see that there are fractions on not only the left side of the equation but also the right side of the equation. So in order for we to solve this particular question, one thing we need to take note of is that the left side of the equation has its own fraction and the right side has its own fractions. So we have to treat the left side fraction independent of the right side fraction. So what does that mean? It means that the left side fraction will have its own common denominator. That's supposed to be A, while on the right side we have its own common denominator. So what does that mean here? What that means is that the left side common denominator here is equal to 10 because we have 5 and 2 right there, while on the right side of the equation the common denominator is in this case equal to 2 because in here we have 2, and if you change this -1 here to a fraction, it means that it is over 1. So 2 and 1, the common denominator in this case is 2. So as a result of that, what we need to do is to treat the left side as a fraction solution, and that'll be separate from the right side solution. So on the left side we have 4a minus 2, we'll just put a bracket there, over 5, and what we're going to do is to multiply our denominator by 2 to get 10, as well as the numerator here, multiply that by 2, and this is going to be plus 1 over 2, where this 2, which is the denominator, you're going to multiply that by 5 to get 10, as well as the numerator, multiply that by 5. Now once we're done with the left side, we also do the right side, but because the common denominator on the right side is different, we're going to apply that same strategy but with a different factor. So in here we have 3a plus 7, we'll put a bracket over 2, and this here, the denominator, you multiply that by 1, as well as the numerator, while on the other side here we have -1 over 1. In here this one denominator will multiply that by 2, and the numerator will multiply that by 2 as well. So on the left side we have our common denominator, which is 10. So in here the first fraction is 5 times 2 for the denominator is equal to 10, and in here we have 2 times what is inside the bracket, 4a minus 2, and this here is added to 1 times 5 gives us 5, over 2 times 5 gives us 10, and this here is equal to 3a plus 7. We know that this is multiplied by 1, which gives us the same value or expression, and this is 2 times 1 gives us 2, and this is minus 2 times 1 gives us 2. 2 times 1 gives us 2. So once we have this, what we have to do next is to be able to treat this bracket inside here, or the start, where is it, this one right here. We have to do our distributive properties. That's what we recognize, that what we see from this particular step right here. So in here we've dealt with the common denominator here. Now we are looking at distributive properties, because we see a bracket, and after the bracket we have a direct number that has to be distributed into every variable in that bracket. So 2 times 4a gives us 8a. 2 times minus 2 gives us minus 4, and this here is over 10, and then we write our 5 over 10, and this here is equal to, in here we have 3, because they are sharing the same common denominator. It means that that is our denominator, and we add the numerators. So we have 3a plus 7 plus into bracket minus 2. So in here, once we have that, our next step is to evaluate the numerator on the left side as well, which means here that we have all this is over 10. We have 8a minus 4 plus 5, and this here is equal to 3a plus 7. Positive times negative gives us negative 2, and this is over 2. So once we have that, evaluating our numerator means that on the left side numerator we have common like terms, or we have like terms, which in this case is minus 4 plus 5. So we evaluate that, and we have here to be 8a minus 4 plus 5 gives us plus 1, and this is over 10. And on the right side we have 3a plus 7 minus 2. We have the common or like terms to be positive 7 minus 2. So 3a positive 7 minus 2 gives us positive 5 over 2. So once we have this, it means here that we are going to do our next strategy, which one is either we cross multiply in here, which we're going to do because it's the easiest method to go with so far, or we multiply the left side or both sides by 10 and then multiply both sides by 2. But we'll do the cross multiply in this case. So if we cross multiply, it means that 2 here will be multiplied by everything inside the numerator, 8a plus 1, and our 10, which is the denominator on the left side, will be multiplied by the numerator, everything on the right side, 3a plus 5. And once we have that, this here, once we have our brackets, we have to do our distributive properties again, and this will be multiplied by that, and our 10 on the right side will be multiplied by both variables inside that bracket. So what we have here is 2 times 8a, which gives us 16a, plus 2 times 1 positive 1 gives us positive 2, and this is equal to 10 times 3a, will give us 30a, and then 10 times positive 5 gives us positive 50. So once we have this taken care of, this is where the easiest step comes in. In here we're going to call it like terms, which goes alongside the inverse operation. So I'm going to move our a's to one side, and we're going to move our constant to the other side of the equal sign, which means that if I'm moving from one side of the equal sign to the other side of the equal sign, my sign changes. So 30a, which is positive 30a, becomes negative 30a on the left side, and while on the right side positive 50 is going to be minus or taken away in here when we put in our 2. So positive 2 moving over to the right side becomes negative 2. So once we have that, 16a minus 30a gives us minus 14 or negative 14a, and this here is equal to 50 plus 2, or sorry, minus 2 gives us 48. So once we have that, the next one is to divide both sides here by negative 14 in order for we to solve for a. So our a here is going to be divided by minus 14, and on the right side 48 will be divided by minus 14, and what we're left with is this cancels that, that cancels that, that gives us 1, and our a is equal to negative 24 over 7, because this here is divided by 2, which gives us 24, and this here divided by 2 gives us 7. So that is our value for a, which is what we have right there, and that is how you're able to solve in here for a, giving a much more combined strategies that is required to solve a particular equation here. So what you recognize here is, since you have a fraction, the first step is to do our common denominator, and then as soon as you deal with that, we recognize here that the next step, because we have a factor multiplied by everything inside the bracket, it means that our next strategy is to do our distributive properties, which is distributive, I'll put as dp, distributive properties. And once you have that, our next step we noticed here is to do our cross multiply, or you do your inverse operation, and once you have that taken care of, I just put that as short form, inverse operation. In here, our first step again is distributive properties, and once you have that taken care of, in here our next step is to, our fifth step here is to do our collect like terms, and we did our inverse operation, which is inverse properties there, and finally we did our final step here, which is our inverse operation. So it's kind of fascinating to see that these particular strategies are actually needed to actually solve questions like this, and once you're able to have these at the back of your mind, distributive properties, color like terms, common denominator, inverse operation, and then finally verifying by putting your variable answer here into this particular question here to see whether the left side is equal to the right side. That is how you're going to be able to comfortably solve problems that are much more complex like this right here. So in here we're going to have another example which we're going to look at. In here we're going to see how to verify, and by verifying it means here that we'll be able to not only solve problems like this, but also checking to see whether our answer that we got works for the problem that is given in question. So moving all the way down, I challenge you all to solve this a, and a should give you an answer which looks like x is equal to 8. And once you're able to do that, be aware here that a safe way to solve this problem is by putting a bracket around, so by that way you can deal with the variables by doing your distributive properties with a negative sign, which is -1 in this case. And once you're able to do that, then you can do your cross multiply after doing the common denominators, because we have a fraction here and we have a fraction here. So once you have that, then you will be able to solve your problem and get your answer to be equal to -8. To be equal to 8. And if you put that back in your question, you should see that the left side is equal to the right side. On this other part here, which is for number 3a, we have a's and we have to solve for a. So in this case, what I'll suggest you do is to, since everything is 1 over something, it means that this variable here ends up to be over 1, and this variable here is equal to over 1, which means here that if you're multiplying something that is a fraction by something over 1, it means that they share that denominator. So once you're able to deal with that, then life becomes easy, because what you can do is to cross multiply and you should get your answer, where a will be equal to 18 over 7. And this is actually a nice way to check that your answer is right. Another way is to actually look at this question here. We see here that we have fractions, and on the left side we have fraction, but on the right side we don't have fraction, we have a decimal. I mean, it's kind of tough to actually punch everything into your calculator using decimal, but you can change your decimal to fractions. So in here we have -0.4, and what I'll suggest is changing this to a fraction. We know that 0.44 is a tenth, which means that we're multiplying both the top and the bottom by 10. So once you multiply the top and bottom by 10, what we have is 4 over 10, which is our fraction. So if you put your fraction back in here, it will become -4 over 10. So in here you can easily solve your left side by finding the lowest common denominator, which in this case will be 15. And once you deal with the numerators, because they all share, in this case now, the same denominator, then you should be able to find your fraction on the left side, and then you do your cross multiply and you will get your answer, which in this case is x to be equal to -20 over 11. And this is actually the answer when you solve this particular problem. And then this one here is a little bit much more challenging, I must say, but it should be easy, because now you have every single variable having a fraction, and we have just one constant, which is +1 over 2. So looking at this in here, let's see how to deal with this problem here. So in here we have on the left side to have a common denominator that is equal to 32, because 32 is of 4 is a factor of 32 and 2 is a factor of 32. And on the right side here we have 3 and 6, and in this case 3 is a factor of 6, which means that the common denominator here is 6. So once we have this, then we'll be able to solve for our fractions after recognizing the common denominator step right there. So In this case, we have 5x minus 1 over 32 minus, we have x over 4, which means that 4 times something gives us 32. So 4 times 8 gives us 32, which means that we multiply also the numerator by 8. And on the next part here, we have positive 1 over 2, which means here that we're multiplying this here by 16, because 16 times 2 gives us 32, as well as the numerator, we multiply that by 16. So this here we're done with is the left side, and we're moving over to the right side, which in this case we have the common denominator to be 16, which means 3, and we have at the top is x minus 1. We'll put a bracket there, and we recognize that 3 times 2 gives us 6, as well as we're multiplying the numerator by 2, and this here minus, we have 2 minus x, we put a bracket, over 6, which in this case we don't have to multiply by anything, we just have to multiply by 1. So if we multiply here by 1 and multiply here by 1, it's still the same thing. So once we're done with that, then we can evaluate what we actually wrote down. So in here we have 5x minus 1 over 32 minus 8x over 4 times 8 is 32, and this here is plus 1 times 16 gives us 16 over 2 times 16 is 32, and on the right side we have 2 times everything inside the bracket, x minus 1 over 3 times 2, 6, minus 2 times, 1 times everything inside the bracket is just 2 minus x over 6. So once we've taken care of that, the next thing here is to treat everything as the same denominator on the left side, which means that here we have 32, and then we add our numerator. So we have 5x minus 1 plus into bracket minus 8x, and this is plus positive 16, and on the right side we have the common denominator to be 16, and in here we have 2 times x gives us, because in here we have distributive properties, so 2 times x, and we have here 2 times negative 1, and as a result of that we have 2x negative 2, and this is minus, don't forget the bracket, 2 minus x. So once we have that, we have to evaluate the left side where we have our signs all in there, and we have our bracket between these two signs. So once we rewrite the 5x minus 1 positive times negative 8x gives us negative 8x, positive times positive 16 gives us positive 16 over 32, and this here is equal to 12x minus 2, and in here you notice that you have a negative, so imagine this having a 1, so it means here that negative 1, and we have to do our distributive properties to open that bracket. So negative 1 times 2 and negative 1 times negative x. So as a result of that, what we have is negative 1 times positive 2 gives us negative 2. Negative 1 times negative x gives us positive x, and this here is over 6. So once we have that taken care of, we see that the left side has like terms there, which are x's, and we have constants on the left side as well. So we evaluate the numerator on the left side of the equation, and what we have here is 5x, which is what we have here, minus 8x. Well, this is a 1, don't forget the 1 is right there, and that will give us negative 3x. And the other one here is negative 1 plus 16, and that gives us positive 15, and this is over 32. While on the right side we have like terms as well. We have positive 2x plus x, which will give us 3x, and here on the other side we have negative 2 minus 2, which gives us minus 4, and this here is over 6. So since we have this taken care of already, our next step is to do our cross multiply, which means that on this side, left side numerator, we're multiplying by the denominator on the other side of the equal sign, and vice versa. So once we have that, it means that we're going to go ahead and solve or rewrite this, but in a factored, no more fraction, but now it's just an evaluation method. So we have 6 times everything inside the bracket. We have here minus 3x plus 15, and this here is equal to, we have 32 times everything inside the bracket, 3x minus 4. So once you have this, we are going to do our distributive properties. 6 times minus 3x, 6 times positive 15, and 32 here times 3x, and 32 times negative 4. So once we have that, we're going to have 6 times negative 8x, or 3x, which gives us negative 18x, plus 6 times 15 gives us positive 90, and the next one is 32 times 3x gives us 96x, and 32 times negative 4 gives us negative 128. So now we have this particular expression. Our next step is to collect like terms, which goes alongside what we know as our inverse operation. So once we have that, what we have is that this is going to be moved over to the left side of the equal sign, and while positive 90 will move over to the right side of the equal sign. So as a result, we have negative 8x, and on the right side we have 96x, positive 96x. If it moves over to the left side, it becomes negative 96x, and this is equal to negative 128. And on the left side we have positive 90. We move it over to the right side, it becomes negative 90. And once you have that, you can solve for the coefficient of x, which in this case is negative 18 minus 96, which gives us negative 114x, and on the other side of the equal sign we have negative 218. So in here, to solve for x, we divide both sides by negative 114, and what we have here is negative 114, negative 114, and our x here is equal to, this cancels that, we're left with 1, and negative divided by negative is positive, and 218 divided by 114 will give us 109 over 57. So that is it on how to solve problems like this, involving now a little bit more complex, but it's pretty easy to recognize. The same thing as always, follow these particular strategies. In this question, we're not asked to verify, but if you want to verify, I challenge you to put the answer here and check whether your answer is proper to make our left side to be equal to our right side of this equation. And don't forget to also solve all these questions and get your answers here. Hopefully your answer is the same as mine and you should be good from there. And also practice verifying as well as an extra step to see that your solution is proper in making our left side to be equal to the right side of that equation. So thanks for following me through this long video. I hope you're able to understand this. There is a handout form that is found on your Haparaspace. Please check that out and also try to solve other questions. If you have any question, please, you can email me or we can have a Google Meet where we can address any problem that you might have along the way. Thanks for following me through this. Really appreciate it. Hit the comment down below. Let me hear your thoughts or any confusion or any challenges you might have. By that way, I can see you soon. Stay smart and believe in yourselves.